Hello, in this video we'll be looking at 5 popular cognitive biases. A cognitive bias is an error in thinking that affects the decisions and judgments we make. It's sort of like a mental shortcut driven by our past experiences and beliefs. Whilst these shortcuts can help us make decisions faster, they don't always lead to accurate or rational answers. The first bias we have is the confirmation bias. This is the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms one's own pre-existing beliefs. An example of this is when searching up a topic online, gravitating towards websites and articles that tends to confirm one's own belief and avoiding websites and articles that go against what you believe. Confirmation biases are seen most often where intense emotions and polarizing views are involved. In the age of social media and personalized internet experiences, it can also be really easy to find yourself in an echo chamber where you are only exposed to information that aligns with your beliefs. And because of this, the confirmation bias is a bias that can come on quite subtly and insidiously as you're unaware of information that lies outside of your beliefs. And in this way, confirmation bias can be reinforced from like-minded individuals inside your echo chamber or simply information you come across as you are only exposed to information that confirms your beliefs. To mitigate the confirmation bias, you can diversify your circle, challenge your beliefs, and seek opposing information. The next bias is the hindsight bias, otherwise known as the "I knew it all along" effect. This is the tendency for people to perceive events as having been predictable after they have already occurred. Common examples you might see of this is after a popular sporting event, stating that you knew a certain team would win. The hindsight bias can have an interesting implication in courtroom and legal settings. Jurors might mistakenly believe that a defendant should have been able to predict or foresee a potential negative outcome, and this can sometimes have an unfair impact on the juror's decision. And this can lead to potentially unfair judgments from the jury. To mitigate the hindsight bias, you can keep a decision journal and review past choices. Next up, we have the Dunning-Kruger Effect. This is a cognitive bias in which individuals with low knowledge or skill in a particular domain often overestimate their competence, whereas individuals with high knowledge or skill often tend to underestimate their competence. If you've ever developed competency in a particular skill or domain, this is something you might have noticed in yourself or in others. This can be visualized on a graph showing how confidence is highest when knowledge is lowest, and as knowledge increases, confidence decreases until you become an expert and confident again. To mitigate the Dunning-Kruger effect, you can get expert feedback and commit to continuous learning. The fourth bias is the sunk cost fallacy. This is the tendency to continue investing in a decision based on one's prior cumulative investment of time, energy, money, effort, rather than the current or future value of the decision. An example of this is staying in a movie theatre to watch a movie you don't really like simply because you've already paid for the tickets. What's interesting about the sunk cost fallacy is that it's rather quite an emotional, psychological bias. People stick with their decisions because they are emotionally invested in it rather than recognize that the current value or future value of their investment may not line up with their emotional value. The sunk cost fallacy also has ties to loss aversion. This is where people feel the pain of a loss far greater than the pleasure of a corresponding and equal gain. This means there's greater pain in abandoning a project than pleasure from pivoting to a successful project. Therefore, people are more likely to continue investing in bad decisions than biting the bullet and moving on to something perhaps more profitable. To mitigate the sunk cost fallacy, you can reassess ongoing projects and focus on future gains. Lastly, we have the negativity bias. This is a compelling facet of the human psychology that highlights our predisposition to notice, remember, and give more weight to negative experiences over neutral or positive ones. The root of this bias tends to stem from physiological experiences and potentially evolution. Negative emotions generally invoke stronger physiological responses in us than positive ones, and some would theorize that this had a positive role role in our past human history, such as making us more attuned to threats and potential predators. The negativity bias can have negative effects on your self-esteem. It can lead to an increase in anxiety and depression. Just think about those days where you've had a pleasant, positive day, but then one small negative thing happens and that somehow manages to outshine all the good that happened on that day and overall make it a negative one. To mitigate the negativity bias, you can note positive moments and find lessons in setbacks. So those were 5 popular cognitive biases that I find interesting. Cognitive biases can lead us astray in our thinking and our decision making, and by being aware of these cognitive biases, that's the first step we can take towards mitigating their impact. By recognizing them, we can actively work towards counteracting them and making more well-informed and rational decisions. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.